I stood frozen in the doorway, the scent of expensive cologne and cheap deceit filling my nostrils. Mark was buttoning his shirt, not meeting my eyes, which was already confirmation enough. But the real kick in the teeth, the thing that shattered the entire foundation of our 5-year marriage, was the suitcase by the door. "Where are you going, Mark?" My voice was dangerously calm, a low tremor before an earthquake. He sighed, the sound of a man inconvenienced by having to confess his sins. "Clara, it's over. I'm leaving." Standard script for a cheating husband, right? Except he threw a twist I never saw coming. "I'm leaving you for Jenna. My own sister." The words felt physically impossible to pronounce, let alone digest. Jenna. Sweet, supportive Jenna, who had cried with me when Mark and I had our first big fight, who had been my maid of honor. She stepped out of the bathroom then, wrapped in one of my silk robes, a smug, hateful look plastered across her face. She wasn't remorseful, she was triumphant. "It was inevitable, Clara. Mark deserves someone who understands him, someone who isn't always so draining." Draining? I had spent 5 years supporting his failing business, working 2 jobs so he could chase his dream. I looked from the man I loved to the woman I trusted, and the world tilted on its axis. My head swam. I needed air, but I couldn't move. Mark grabbed his suitcase, ready to walk out the door forever, sealing my life away with his betrayal. He didn't even say goodbye. Jenna paused, right in front of me, leaning close enough for me to smell the perfume she'd stolen from my dresser. "Enjoy your freedom, Clara. We certainly will enjoy ours." They were gone. Just like that. The silence they left behind was louder than any screaming match could have been. I didn't cry immediately. The shock acted like a powerful anesthetic, numbing me completely. I just sat on the cold hardwood floor, surrounded by the ghosts of our life, staring at the empty space where Mark's side of the closet used to be. It wasn't until I reached up to rub my aching temples that I remembered. The morning sickness that had been plaguing me for weeks wasn't stress. It wasn't the flu. It was a person. I was nearly 8 weeks pregnant. Mark didn't know. I had planned a romantic dinner to tell him that night. The realization was a devastating punch to the gut. The father of my child had just walked out to start a new life with my sister. How could I tell him now? How could I introduce my innocent baby into that venomous web of deceit? I stood up, feeling a fierce, protective instinct bloom amidst the wreckage. This baby was mine. Only mine. I decided right then I wouldn't tell Mark. He forfeited the right to know the moment he chose Jenna. I needed a plan. Not just survival, but total extraction. I couldn't stay in this town, near their smug happiness. But before I ran, I had to watch their new life crumble. They deserved to lose everything, just as I had. I needed to know why Jenna did this. Was it purely Mark? Or was there something else lurking under her perfect facade? I started packing, not for a quick trip, but for a permanent exit, saving every piece of correspondence, every financial record, every hidden picture I could find. Vengeance wasn't going to be quick, it was going to be meticulous. 3 weeks later, the announcement exploded across our family group chat: Jenna was pregnant. Mark attached a picture of them beaming, holding tiny ultrasound printouts. My mother, completely oblivious to the depth of the betrayal, gushed about finding the perfect grandmother name. It was sickening. Mark and Jenna had only supposedly been together for maybe a month when he moved out, but the dates Jenna was vaguely throwing around for the due date made it seem like she was much further along, closer to 3 months. Even doing the mental arithmetic quickly, it didn't align with Mark leaving me, or even with the sketchy timeline he had given me about when their affair started. I kept my face utterly blank during the obligatory family video call announcing the engagement and the pregnancy. I offered weak congratulations, my voice carefully modulated to sound slightly sad but supportive. I wanted them to think I was broken, grieving, and harmless. Jenna was positively radiant, basking in the attention, talking about how this baby was a miracle, a sign that her love with Mark was meant to be. I watched Mark's face. He was ecstatic, truly overjoyed at the prospect of being a father. He genuinely believed this baby was the beautiful, immediate consequence of their true love. My baby was currently a secret little lump of cells protected inside me, a secret Mark would never know. But watching Jenna talk about their conception, a little seed of doubt began to sprout. The math was wrong. I knew Jenna's menstrual cycle schedule better than my own, we used to share everything. Something was off about that due date. Way off. I filed that detail away, a small, sharp shard of glass, waiting to be used. The more Jenna talked about the pregnancy and her first trimester struggles, the more the timelines frayed at the edges. She was vague about the month of conception, always circling back to right after Mark and I finally admitted our feelings. But I remembered something specific. 5 months ago, Jenna had been agitated, jittery, and secretive. She disappeared for a week, claiming she was on a yoga retreat to detox. She turned off her phone. She barely checked in. When she came back, she was pale, shaky, and looked like she'd been crying for days, not meditating. When I asked what was wrong, she snapped at me, which was totally unlike her. She immediately started being overly sweet to Mark, almost aggressively so, trying to deflect attention. At the time, I assumed she was having a secret fling that went badly. Now, I wondered. Was that disappearance related to this baby? If she had conceived 5 months ago, Mark was definitely still sleeping in our marital bed. And more importantly, he wasn't the father. The thought energized me, stripping away the grief and replacing it with focused, icy determination. I needed proof. Jenna was terrible at covering her tracks online. She deleted most things, but she always forgot about the backup cloud storage she used for her extensive selfie collection. I still had the password, a ridiculous one she'd used since high school. It was time to go digging. The cloud was a goldmine of vanity, but tucked away among hundreds of filtered photos was a small, encrypted folder labeled expenses. Inside, I found not receipts, but a few blurry photos. One photo, dated 5 months ago, right around the time of her mysterious yoga retreat, showed Jenna laughing on a beach, her arm linked tightly with a man I had never seen before. He was tall, dark-haired, and clearly smitten. The location tag was removed, but the metadata showed a coastal town 3 states away, nowhere near where she claimed to be meditating. Who was this guy? Why was she hiding him? I felt the pieces clicking into place with a horrifying speed. This wasn't just about stealing a husband, this was about forcing a marriage and forcing a paternity on a man who was financially stable. Jenna hadn't wanted Mark, she'd wanted Mark's resources and the immediate stability for a baby she might have otherwise had to raise alone. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was a calculated fraud. I took screenshots of everything, downloading the raw files. This evidence was strong, but I needed to put a name and a testimony to that face. I used reverse image search and social media stalking skills I didn't know I possessed. Within hours, I found him, Alex, a former classmate of Jenna's from college, who was now a successful landscape architect. He lived near that coastal town. I had the smoking gun. This was the point of no return. Do I expose her now, wrecking my family entirely but regaining my dignity, or do I stay silent and let Mark live this lie? It raises a serious moral question. If exposing a betrayal causes collateral damage to innocent people, should the truth still be revealed, no matter the cost? What would you do in my place? Please share your thoughts in the comments. I decided I had to meet Alex. He had the missing link to the story, the final piece of the fraudulent puzzle. I drove 3 hours south, arranging a discreet meeting at a coffee shop far from Mark and Jenna's new life. Alex was hesitant at first, confused why Jenna's sister was suddenly showing him photos from 5 months ago. I laid out the situation plainly. Mark left me for Jenna, she's pregnant, and she claims the baby is his. I showed him the photo of them on the beach and asked him directly about their relationship. Alex's face went pale. He confirmed they had a whirlwind, intense affair that weekend. We didn't use protection, he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. She broke it off immediately when she got home. Said she realized she couldn't leave her current life. She said she was deeply sorry, but it was over. Then, a few weeks later, she called me, hysterical. She told me she was pregnant, and she begged me to never contact her again. She swore she was going to tell her family it was from a brief, previous relationship that was over and that she would raise the baby alone. Alex looked utterly devastated. She's telling her new husband it's his? That's insane. I offered to be there for her, to marry her even. She refused. She said I wasn't stable enough for her family's standards. Mark must be wealthy, right? Bingo. It wasn't love. It was a transaction. Alex confirmed everything I needed. He even offered to take a paternity test immediately if the baby was born. But I didn't need a lab test. I had his confession, my timeline, and Jenna's panicked earlier refusal to use Alex. I recorded our entire conversation discreetly. I had the full, damning truth now. All that was left was the perfect stage for the grand finale. Mark and Jenna were throwing a massive gender reveal and new home party next weekend. It was the perfect stage. Their new house was enormous, paid for by Mark leveraging a huge loan against his inheritance, a loan his father had co-signed, believing Mark was making a solid choice for his growing family. Ruin needed to be swift and absolute, touching both their reputation and their finances. I accepted the invitation, RSVPing with a chilly politeness that confused my mother. I dressed impeccably that day, in a simple but elegant black dress that highlighted the flatness of my own stomach, my secret still safe. When I arrived, the backyard was filled with balloons, expensive catering, and the faces of every single person important to Mark and Jenna, family, Mark's business partners, and, crucially, Mark's father, who held the strings to the family money. Jenna was glowing, wearing a ridiculous sash that read "Mommy-to-be," clinging to Mark's arm. The ceremony began with Mark giving a sappy, tearful speech about how leaving me was the hardest decision of his life, but it led him to his true destiny and the family he always wanted. I stood in the back, waiting for the applause to die down. When the silence settled, just before they were about to pop the giant blue balloon, I stepped forward, holding the small, silver microphone I had borrowed from the DJ. I didn't scream or cry. I spoke with the controlled, measured coldness of a prosecutor delivering a closing argument. "Before we pop that balloon and celebrate this wonderful new beginning," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the expectant crowd, "I think we need to confirm exactly whose beginning we are celebrating." Mark's head snapped toward me, his face a mixture of confusion and sudden dread. Jenna's face went white, her hand flying to her mouth. I held up the printed photograph of Jenna and Alex on the beach. This photo was taken 5 months ago, right when Mark was still sleeping in our marital bed. "Jenna, you claimed this baby was conceived after Mark left me. But the timeline simply doesn't add up. 5 months ago, Jenna was not with Mark. She was with this man, Alex." I watched Mark's eyes scan the photograph, then snapped to Jenna. He didn't need a paternity test, the sheer panic in Jenna's eyes was the only confirmation necessary. I spoke to Alex. He confirmed the relationship and the timing. He knows he is the baby's father, but Jenna rejected him, deeming him not stable enough to support the life she felt she deserved. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Mark's father looked like he was about to have a heart attack. Jenna finally found her voice, a choked, frantic scream. "No. Clara, you witch, you're lying. It's Mark's. It has to be Mark's." Her denial was too passionate, too desperate. It confirmed everything. Mark let go of her hand as if she had suddenly become toxic. He looked at me, then at Jenna, then at the photo, his entire world dissolving into sickening realization. The party ended in chaos. Mark's father immediately called his lawyers, freezing Mark's assets and demanding an investigation into the massive loan Mark had just taken out. The scandal was immediate and total. Mark was facing financial ruin and public humiliation, all because he fell for a manipulative lie. He realized, with crushing clarity, that he had thrown away his stable marriage and his true future for a woman who simply saw him as a bank account and a societal ladder. Jenna was hysterical, screaming, denying, and then finally collapsing in tears, admitting that she was terrified of telling Mark the truth and worried he would leave her, so she took the chance. But the baby was indeed Alex's. Mark was desolate. He didn't just lose me, he lost the family he thought he was building, his reputation, and his financial security. Jenna was left standing alone, pregnant with another man's child, facing the scorn of the entire family. A few days later, Mark showed up at my tiny new apartment, looking defeated and hollow. He was shaking. "Clara, I made the worst mistake of my life. I was blinded. I see it all now. Please, tell me there's a way back. Tell me you can forgive me. We could start over. We could still have that family we talked about. The baby we should have had." He reached for my hand, genuine tears streaming down his face, searching for a lifeline I was no longer obligated to offer. I pulled my hand away, folding my arms gently across my stomach. I looked him dead in the eye, and for the first time in months, I felt truly, utterly peaceful. His devastation was complete, his karma delivered. "Mark, there is no us anymore. You destroyed that when you chose my sister. And as for the baby we should have had, I let the silence hang heavy, watching the hope flicker in his eyes. He leaned in, desperate. Clara? You mean? I gave him the slightest, cruelest smile. Yes, Mark. I am pregnant. I am 4 months along now. The baby is absolutely yours. But you forfeited the right to know about him the moment you chose Jenna. You forfeited the right to be a father to my child when you left me and believed her manipulative lies. His face crumbled completely. He realized he didn't just lose a wife, he lost his chance at true fatherhood. He lost his biological child to his own selfish stupidity. I turned my back to him, gesturing toward the door. I will be raising this baby alone, Mark. You are nothing to us. Now, get out of my life, and never, ever come back. He left without a sound, broken beyond repair. I closed the door, placed my hands on my gently growing bump, and knew my true, beautiful triumph had just begun. Thanks everyone for watching. If you liked this, please subscribe to the channel Dramatic Zone, leave a like, and write in the comments which country you are from. Stay tuned, there will be a new story tomorrow.